Today we're going to be looking at genetics. Genetics is the study of heredity. Heredity is the passing of characteristics from parent to offspring. And just a vocab word so you guys know, a section of DNA or a gene is a section of DNA on the chromosome. Just to add, heredity, like think about it. Your parents give you the traits that you have. So like, let's say you have brown hair, your mom has brown hair, you're most likely going to get brown hair, and that's a characteristic passed on by the offspring, or by the parents to the offspring, I should say. So some important vocabulary we have to go over, and just so you understand where our genes come from, they come from chromosomes. Karyotypes are a full set of chromosome an organism has. So some things have very little chromosomes, maybe like, I don't know what the lowest is. I would assume somewhere in the single digits. And then you have things like these very complex ferns with like 1,400. But humans, they have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 1 through 22 here on the little chart you can see. These are your autosomes. These are all your traits from hair color to how fast your toenail grows. I don't know, how smelly your feet are, all that stuff is determined by the first 22 chromosomes, but your sex is everything related to your sex, and your gender is going to be on the sex chromosomes X or Y. If you have two X, that makes you a female. If you have an X and a Y, that makes you a male. A healthy person will have all 23 chromosome pairs. An unhealthy person will have too little or too much. Yes, there is a grammatical error there. My bad. So we have alleles versus traits. A trait is just a characteristic, a broad definition of a characteristic. I put this slide in here because a lot of people get it mixed up. So, for example, a trait could be your hair color. You have all these hair colors, but more specifically, an allele is a variation of that gene. So we have blonde hair or blue eyes. Specifics is what an allele is. So who found genetics? Who understood genetics? It was Gregor Mendel. He studied the inheritance of pea plants, and he did studies of crossing pea plants together, seeing what would happen to the offspring when he breeded them, or doing that kind of stuff. And he created two laws: the law of independent assortment and the law of segregation. The law of independent assortment tells us that genes are separate from each other, and they do not affect each other really. So for example, your hair color does not affect if you have an attached earlobe or not. And then he also made the law of segregation. The two alleles on a gene, you will only get one of those genes. So in this example, you have a red and a white flower, you will only get the red color flower. And this law has some things that's not right about it. I'll make a video on it. There's non-Mendelian genetics, like codominance, incomplete dominance, I think it's called. That's when you get blends or expression of both genes. It kind of contradicts the law of segregation, but yeah, check out the video on that if you get the time to, because it's kind of interesting. So we have a genotype and a phenotype. A genotype is the code. The phenotype is what you see. So think about it like this. Where you're on a computer, you're playing your favorite game. What you're seeing is the phenotype, but behind closed doors, there's code running in the background to, code for the game. You hit W on your character to make him go forward. That is, you're seeing him move forward. That's the phenotype, but what's happening behind the scenes is the game's like, okay, it's telling it in code to move forward. That's the genotype. And in genetics, we have it by two letters. For example, it can be dominant R, dominant R, dominant R, recessive R. You also hear big R, big R, big R, little r, or little r, little r. That's going to be the code. That was just kind of an example. And then the phenotype is what you observe. So let's say it's red eyes, rough skin, etc. So I kind of just spoke about this earlier, but we have dominant genes and recessive genes. Dominant genes will always show if present. So you just, in the two allele pair, if you have at least one dominant, it will always show. But if you have recessive, you need both to show. You can't have one dominant and then one recessive. There's multiple types of genotypes. We have homozygous dominant. That's when there's two dominant alleles, big R, big R. And then you have homozygous recessive. That's two recessive alleles, so little r, little r. You have heterozygous. You have one dominant allele and you have one recessive allele, big R, little r. So then we have the Punnett Square. We can kind of show predicted offspring with these genotypes. So for example, here we have the homozygous recessive set of alleles by the father. We always put the father on top, and then we have the mom, which is heterozygous, meaning that she has the dominant allele and then a recessive allele. So the possible outcomes of this is going to be a 50% chance of the child having brown eyes, that's the phenotype, and then 50% of the child having blue eyes. You can also do a genotype ratio, like you have a 1-to-1 ratio of or heterozygous, and then you'll have one of homozygous recessive. So here we're going to practice. We have a little scenario here. I actually got a worksheet on this, and this was like, wow. I don't even know why she put it in there. Anyways, because who wants to think about Patrick meeting a fellow female and, doing the devil's tango? Anyways, Patrick meets Patrika at the dance. Patrika has green skin, which is recessive to pink skin, meaning that the pink skin, if present in the allele, will always outclass the green allele. Patrick is purebred, which means homozygous dominant, so he's going to have 2 dominant alleles in his genotype. And then the female is going to, she's going to be the recessive allele, which means she's going to have 2, she's going to have a homozygous recessive set of alleles, which means she's going to have 2 lowercase, just 2 recessive alleles. So, I wasn't supposed to show you that, but you try to predict the offspring. I'll give you a second here. You can pause the video. Use a Punnett Square to help. I don't think I did. We did talk about the Punnett Square, so yeah. Give you a second on that. Pause the video. All right. So what you should have found was you're gonna put the dad on the top. Remember, we talked about that. Big P, big P. I don't think I did talk about this, but the dad always goes on the top and the female always goes on the side of your Punnett Square. And you're going to notice that you're going to get big P, little p on all 4 of the little possibilities. So what does that mean? Well, we know that the dominant allele will always dominate over the recessive, and that will make it heterozygous. Heterozygous always shows the dominant allele. So we're going to see Patrick, we're going to see the children or the offspring have only pink skin. Well, that's going to be it, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did learn something, please let me know, and you guys have a good one. Bye-bye.